in this tutorial we'll be modelling the high poly version of the shipping container, and from the previous version when we started to actually look at some reference images of the container, you can see here we've got this quite large reference image, and we can see most of the parts are modular, so there's multiple parts that we just model one version and then we can kind of duplicate over and put in the right place. We've also noticed that we can actually split it in half, and it's pretty much, with the exception of a few areas, symmetrical, certainly in the X, but also it's actually symmetrical in the Z as well. The back might not be 100% symmetrical, but the general shape will be, and we'll just need to make some adjustments to the back of it. So really we could actually model a quarter of it and it would cut out quite a bit of work. So we're going to use this as our reference. Now we're not going to be using image planes in this. What we are going to be using is we're going to be using our part model. We're actually going to bring in one of our containers because these were modelled to scale, and we're just going to do the smaller of the two. So we're just going to select that one and we're going to export this out. I'm just going to do it to my desktop, but you can do it to your project folder. So shipping container as an OBJ export. I don't need my capital there. I'll just get rid of that. Okay, once we've done that, we can open a new scene. So Control N for new scene if you want to use the shortcuts, and let's go to import and let's just bring in that shipping container. Okay, we can see it's brought it in right over there. So we need to make sure we're moving it into the center. So modify and center pivot. Remember Shift and Control if you want to add the center pivot command to your keyboard, to your shelf, sorry. Hold down X and then we can snap it to the grid. So we just snapped into 0, 0, 0 space, but actually what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold down D and then V. I'm actually going to align it to the actual center of the grid. So what we'll do is we're going to our side view and we're going to hold down X and we're going to just pop it up onto the top there, just so it's resting on the top, and this is going to be our base for our model. So if I check my settings in here, we are in centimeters, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing like a scale version, so 1 centimeter equals a meter for this particular piece of modelling. Okay, so this I think was a 20 meter, 20. This doesn't seem like the right scale, and it could be because I've made it in a different piece of software. 6 meter container, that could be right, about 20 foot. Okay, so this is going to be the base. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put this onto its own layer. I'm going to call this blocking layer and save it, and that will allow me to reference this, and I can't select it anymore, so it's just giving me a guide for where everything should be. Okay, then we obviously need to look through our reference images quite regularly. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get a bar across the top and a bar across the bottom. Now we can see here that this looks like a thin flat piece with kind of like a rectangle on the top. Now obviously if you can find some more reference images, that's better. So let's just have a look. Spelled orthographic wrong. Let's just have a look at some, see what we can find. Can be quite difficult finding the right sort of footage. That's not very good. Not really giving us a great idea. And again, we're not going to necessarily model this 100% accurately to the referenced image that we've got. We can make our own decisions on a lot of these. Let's just put container orthographic and see what we find. From some of the previous tutorials we did find some orthographic images, at least some plan drawings. So we can actually see there the construction roughly. Have a look at this one. So we can see we've got this bar across the top and then this corrugated sides which add strength, and then the bars here. So let's have a look at shipping container design instead of orthographic. Like we did previously when we were searching for references, it's very dependent on what you type in. Okay, so we're starting to get somewhere now with these. Let's just narrow our search into anything to larger images, see what we can find. So we're finding some technical drawings here of kind of the general construction. So download whatever you need for those, and then let's just actually start modelling away. So first thing I'm going to need is a cube, and I'm going to change the width. So I think about 6. Change the height and change the depth as well. So this can actually make up the base section. Like I said, we'll be actually modelling it slightly differently, and we can just change the height slightly as well there. Some of these details we will be actually deleting anyway. And just like before, what I want to do is I want to make sure this is all snapped to the grid. So hold down D, hold down V. Jump into the different view, make sure it's snapped to the right place. Hold down X, and then we just snap it to the grid. You can actually see that our dimensions are slightly out. So we could then center pivot again once we've done that. And make some adjustments. We could actually probably do it in our channel box. Okay, so we have our side part there. We'll probably make some adjustments anyway because of the uprights that we're going to be putting in here, and then we'll just duplicate that one to the top. And what I would do is I'd always refer back to your reference image, and you can see we have this kind of square block here, we have the corrugated section here, and then it looks like we've got like a large section which is our door hinge with these blocks underneath. Okay, so this is modular essentially, and then it's welded together, so we can kind of go with a similar sort of construction rather than having to make the whole thing out of one cube. We can start actually making it out of separate sections. Okay, so let's bring in a plane and let's rotate it 90 degrees in the X. Let's kind of match it up to where it's going to be. Roughly the center. Let's change the width. And if we look at our original width for this one, 6.05, we can do 6.05 for this one. Don't forget the 6. And then the height, we're just going to be eyeballing the height at the moment for this. So at the moment I've got this intersecting, and I ideally don't want to have this intersecting, but for the moment we're okay. This is going to be just one technique, and we're going to go over a few different techniques of how to do this as well anyway, so don't get too worried. So in the height we don't need any divisions, we just need divisions in the width, and that's just going to be for extruding. Okay, so we work out how corrugated we want it to be, and then we select all the faces for this, and we extrude. So I'm just going to use a shortcut for extrude here, and I'm just going to try offset for the moment. Ooh, that's not working. That's not working either, and I know exactly what I'm doing wrong here. Okay, so what I need to do is when I actually go to my extrude, and I have my option, which I'm not sure where it is on this one. Looking at the attributes, keep faces together, and let's just try the local. I'll try the thickness, that's not working either. So let's just try scaling those in, and that seems to be working for us. Okay, then what we can do is we can actually pull that out, and we start actually getting our extruded sections there. Okay, so what we would do is actually we'd end up pushing this further back into our mesh, and it might mean we've got to adjust some of the bottom section here. But first of all, we need to do some cleanup on this. So we're going to just isolate this particular piece of geometry, and we're going to select faces. Now I'm going to highlight the top, shift, just so I've got the tops highlighted, and then we'll delete those. And we'll do the same again, shift, deselect all those. Let's get rid of those. So we've just got the corrugated shape. Now we want to add a bit more to this as well, so we're going to bevel this as well. So select all these edges here and go to our modeling toolkit, and let's go to bevel. You can see we've actually beveled the shape. So we could do this to add some kind of shape. What we probably would have been better doing is actually doing it two separate bevels rather than doing the one. So I'm going to undo that bevel, and I'm going to jump into the top view, and I'm going to go shift select just like we did before. Those. In fact, I'll control select, so I'm deselecting. And you can see now we just have the front ones. So if we bevel these, we can change our fraction. I don't think it's quite that high, so we'll just try 100, And then let's add some segments to this as well. Let's jump back into the top view. Let's select all these edges at the back. Jump into the top view again and deselect all those. Make sure we're doing this correctly. Always check, make sure your beveling is correct. Oh yes, so your selections are correct. Let's just do that. Okay, and we just now need to do an extra bevel. Let's just deselect that, and deselect all these front ones here. Sadly, we also have to deselect these. It shouldn't actually affect this at all. In fact, it shouldn't really affect those. Let's just double check and make sure it doesn't. No, it's not affecting those. Well, I don't think it is anyway. Let's just double check. Go down the line. No, it doesn't seem to have affected those. Actually, let's do 150. Somewhere in between. And you can see now we've got a nice corrugated side that we can use on both. You can see that's not looking too bad so far. Okay, let's unisolate this model. Where is the isolate gone? Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's leave this top bit thicker. But what we want to do is we want to actually come into the edge, select these edges, select this edge, and we're actually going to try and snap this edge to the top of here, which we might not want to do it. Let's see if it'll do it in the side view. So what we're doing is we're basically trying to do a snap to point. Which it doesn't seem to want to do at the moment. We do have other options as well for doing this. But I think that will do actually. Okay, so the one thing I want to do is actually want to make this narrower, because that's what we've seen on the actual original. Let's jump into the side. Let's get really close. You see that one's snapping, so let's just see if we can get it to snap. We're snapping to the other point, we're not snapping to the point we want it to snap to. So let's just eyeball that for the moment, and then we'll worry about that a bit later on. We're just trying to get our construction in at the moment, because I'm probably going to end up having to move this up anyway. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at our image. We've got quite a thick bit here, but it does feel like it's got that kind of lip, although I can't really see it on the image here. Just going to use my I was trying to use my plus and minus keys to zoom in, but doesn't seem to be working. But you can see we've got the corrugated side. It's not 100% the same, but it's similar. And it does look like these are kind of thicker here. So the next thing I want to do is actually start thinking about these blocks here. Okay, so jump back in. And let's just add in this cube. And what we'll do is we'll actually kind of get this cube to where we want it to be before we move any further. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bevel cube. No, it's not. I'm actually going to go and do something else first. I'm actually going to go and add some divisions to this. So we can see we've got these holes. We have these holes in the center. So really I want to replicate those holes. And that should do, that sort of division. And then we need to click the edges. So this is going to be the first part of the shipping container, but this is going to form multiple parts. It will be quite a long tutorial when it's all finished. Okay, back to the modelling toolkit. Let's bevel. And let's add some segments to this. That should do. We're kind of getting our rough shape here. The next thing I want to do is I want to be able to kind of cut this hole, these holes into the side. So let's just go back and have a look at these holes. You can see they're kind of oval shaped. They're not 100% kind of round, so we don't need to worry too much about the shape being 100% accurate there. So all we're going to do for this is we're going to select our verts on here, and what I will end up doing is with this is I will mirror this over. Make sure you don't select other edges. Let's narrow that one in. And then we'll just punch out the face of that one. Select the actual edge loop there, and then we're going to extrude this in. Okay, so we can use our thickness to do this. Just something like that. And then I'm going to select around these edges. And bevel again. Change this segment. And what you can see is when we smooth this, we're actually getting a smooth cube, and we're getting this kind of oval shape in here as well. Now, I said I was going to just mirror this over. Now I'm not actually going to mirror it, I'm going to quarter the whole thing. Which I think should work. So, popping into the top view, and this is going to be interesting to see how well this works. Let's get rid of half of the model, and then let's get rid of a quarter of the model. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to not mirror this because we don't have any geometry on here, but I'm going to see how this works. So a lot of times actually kind of thinking of this modelling process is kind of a little trial and error. In fact, what I'm going to do is to make it easier, I think I will just adapt this side first. There are ways we could have actually got around doing this, but I don't think they would have been massively successful actually. And sometimes there would be a little bit more trouble than it was worth. Okay, so let's just do the same we did with this one. We'll just punch out that. Select the edge. Now you can see it's selected all around the edge, which we don't want. So we'll just click on one, then click on the corresponding one, and it'll just select that range there. Okay, then we'll bevel width again, not bevel it, sorry, change the thickness. It was just to the 100, well, minus 100 mark. Select this, and we'll just do a bevel. Not quite sure what the fraction was last time, but okay, so now we have our model. We can see the pivot point is still in the center, so we can actually now start just mirroring this instead. So okay, so we've got to mirror geometry, and we want a positive in the X. You can see it's actually done all of our verts for us as well. Select again, go back to the mirroring tool, and again you can go, when you click on this, you click on mesh, we can actually just tear this menu off temporarily while we're using it. Mirror geometry, and we want one in the minus Z. Okay, you can see that gives us our shape, and now what we can do is once we finish with it, we can smooth it, and what we can do after that, if we're happy with the shape, we can go up to modify, just looking for the right tool here. Okay, so go up to modify, just try to find the right tool, convert smooth mesh preview to polygons, and that will give us quite a high resolution mesh. Now we can actually do what we want with this one. We can scale it down to the right size, and we can start moving it into position. So I'm just going to hold down V and just let's snap it over here if it will actually do that. Nope, not liking it. We just have to manually move it, still with the snapping held, and then we can just kind of get our final position in here. And this will actually guide how we need to change our other mesh as well. So those ones actually stick a bit further out, not that far though, I don't think, something like that. We could then duplicate that one, move it down to the bottom, get it into the right place at the base. And then what we'll end up doing, we'll end up actually using the duplicate special to kind of move it into the right place in the other angles. Okay, so now what we can actually do with this one is we can start moving this one back by selecting the vertices. If we hold down V, we can see if we can get it to snap to the edge of here. And we'll do the same again with the other side. We'll do the same with the bottom for now. You can already see that we actually need to make this longer, so make these a bit longer so they fit back into our model. I could add a split line down the center, and then just actually mirror the whole thing over, but it's easy enough to kind of move and snap these areas. So we need to make sure, and I forgot to do this at the beginning, was actually set a project. So let's go into our project window before I forget, and we'll click on new, and we'll go HP for high poly, shipping container, and we'll click accept. We've got a set project, and we'll save scene as modeling 01. Okay, so we're now going to move on to looking at some other areas. Just before I do that, I'm going to just go to the back of my model and select this, move this further in, and this one as well. Okay, I can also do a bit of cleanup as well while I'm here, because this is never going to be seen, and this is never going to be seen, although I just remembered I'm actually working with the high poly version, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is come into here and go to my edges here, and I want to bevel these edges. But only a fraction. I'm going to add a double segment to it, and it'll just help give us that kind of nice edge to that. We will eventually be altering this as well, so let's just go back and have a look at our reference image. So you can see we have what looks like kind of a block with a kind of front edge attached to it, so we'll actually start by making that next as well. So again, all we need for this is we need a cube, and we need to change some of the dimensions, so we can either use this little quick tool here, or we can actually come and change some of the width and height and everything in our main section. Let's just move it out here so we can see what's going on. Okay, so let's say it's 15. Let's move this out to here. So I'm using snapping quite a bit. That's just, I'm going to quickly refer to my shipping container. I'm just going to keep that open actually on my other screen at the moment, just while I'm doing this bit. Okay, so I can see this is kind of in the center here pretty well. It's still a little large, I think. Let's go for 13. Maybe 14. I mean, it's okay to spend time doing this, and again, you will find when you're not doing a tutorial and when you're you can spend a bit more time on these things. So let's just select the front verts. Let's just snap them to there. Select the bottom ones and snap them to the bottom there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this face, I'm going to push this face in like that, because this is where our door section is going to come out. So what I need to do now is add an edge loop in. And what I'm also going to do before I do that, I'm going to just select my shipping container here, and I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit, and I'm going to go to the multi-cut and hold down Control and add an edge loop in here. Okay, well, we'll be doing the same at the back as well. Let's just isolate this model for a second, and let's go to face, and let's get rid of that whole front bit there. Turn off isolation, and we just can see a bit better what things that are going on. Okay, so I'm going to add in another multi-cut now, and I'm going to just try and eyeball roughly where I think this is. Select this face, and we're going to extrude out again. Let's just select this one, and let's just go back a little further with this. Okay, once I've done that, what I can do now is select this edge, and I'm going to go to bevel again, and let's just bevel that, and let's go quite large with that. and add in quite a few segments. And you can see we now get a curved edge, which is the front of our shipping container, and then we'll do the same again where we're going to add another bevel. Not as large this time. All of this geometry still has history on it, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Okay, so we now need to look at getting rid of little bits of these. And actually what would have probably been better would be actually to do this before the fact, because I'm going to have to do a lot of cleanup. So just to show you that these things happen, we make mistakes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in here. So let's just undo some of this stuff we've done here. Go right back until we get rid of that. And first thing to do is to come into here and add in an edge loop. So hold down shift, and what we want is we want a 50% edge loop, which is that. Normally it does actually bring up the percentages. For some reason it's not. Okay. Right, so now we've done that one, we can actually come in and add in another one. So we know we've got one right at the top. And the hinges are, let's just again have a quick look. They're not very large gaps. Something like that. And then we know we've got another one, and we're basing this now from the center, not from the outside. So this is the center, just another one slightly further up. They're kind of sort of evenly spaced out. Let's just put one in here. Still got our curve there, but what we'll do now is we'll just delete this bottom half. Okay, let's just have a look and see where our edge is. What I want to do is just hold down V and align that to there. I'm just going to do a quick test before I do anything else on the mirroring of this. So mesh, and we need mirror geometry again, and we're now going to be going minus in the Y. And that seems to work okay. Okay, so now rather than doing what I did before, I'm actually going to come and select this face, and select this face, and select this face. And then I'm going to pull this out by doing the extrude. To our front. Then select this face, this face, this face, this face, this face. Push this back just like we did before, which we're going to have a bit of an issue with now because of this. I think we can probably get away with it there. I don't think it's going to be that noticeable. So now we're going to select all of our edges here. And we're going to bevel, but obviously what we should really be doing as well is kind of looking at how we can bevel this edge and this edge, but it's not going to be as hard a bevel, so what we'll do is we'll come and look at that a bit later on. Okay, so we're going to go to bevel, let's push this back and get our segments. And then what we need to do is a bit of cleanup, get rid of that face at the bottom there. And let's just have a look and see what else we can do with this. Select that edge, let's bevel this. Got to finish off before we do anything, any other alterations you see with this. Sometimes these can be a little bit painful, so what you might want to do is actually come to your actual bar here, and we can use the slider. It's a little bit easier to use. Okay, let's look at what we can do with these, and let's just have a little experiment first before we do anything else. We are going to have to keep this geometry relatively clean because we will be using it to bake, and ideally you want it clean. You can triangulate it before you bake, and that can solve a lot of problems. Let's just have a look at what's going on with this. So let's just see how this will bevel. And let's just go back to our attributes. And that's beveled pretty well, actually, considering. So 110 and 2, that's what we're going to remember. So what I'll do is actually save myself a bit of time. Select those, deselect those, deselect those, select that, select that, and then let's go back to our modelling toolkit and bevel. Keep going to where bevel used to be. 110 we said, and 2. And we're actually getting quite a nice result with that. Okay, so let's go back to our mesh and let's mirror our geometry again. We already have it set up from before, so we can just mirror like that, and it should mirror everything over with all the bevels. Okay, so we're getting the kind of front part of our container now. We've got our back part, so our door hinges there, ready kind of to start thinking about putting the doors on. So the next step is going to be to create that bar across the front and then create our door. We'll be creating the back, which will be again another bar similar to this. It'll be essentially a repeat of this front bit with the things, but this will be kind of more of a solid piece rather than being this with the door hinges on. So that's what we're going to do in the second part of the tutorial.